Hello, welcome back to episode 3 of season 2 of the Internet Vision podcast. First of all, sorry for the technical difficulties. We have switched up this episode. My stuff wasn't working, Sarah's stuff wasn't working, but whatever, we move. It's no surprise anymore. However, first of all, I need to introduce incredible, stunning, brilliant co-host, Sarah.
Thank you. You're always giving me such a shout out that I feel like I don't deserve, but you're just as beautiful. Thank you.
However, I feel like I have to take the reins here.
You have to take the reins. This is your save. You have to announce.
It is honestly my pleasure to announce this icon, legend, that is Moistbreezy. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure, honestly. It really is.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Moistbreezy has recently released in the past year Breezy, the EP album. Fantastic. Love it. And she's here to chat with us today and talk about herself and her music. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Do you want to start off by telling a little bit about yourself and what got you into music?
Oh boy, let's see, where should I start? I'm always been an artist. I've been always doing creative things throughout my life. I watch baby videos. There's me banging on my toy piano, all of that. Technically wrote my first song at 6, but I didn't really think about pursuing music for a while. I wanted to do other things. Like I went to film school and I worked in film for a while, but somewhere in the midst of that, I was like, I think I actually want to try my hand at music and learning production. And yeah, so that's around that time I got into production and things kind of took off from there. And like the name Moistbreezy also comes from like when I was in film school, I had a friend who was making music, who was trying to get me to do vocals on his tracks. And I would always make these like joke songs or like joke raps to troll him. And they were like, oh, we need a terrible name for you. You should be called Moist Princess. I was like, wow, I love it. And I posted one of these joke like troll raps on SoundCloud and someone commented like trolling real hard, keep it real Moistbreezy. And I was like Moistbreezy is better. So that's where the name came from. And then I kind of had it on as like my Instagram handle for a while before I even actually really started making music. But it was around like the end of 2014. I was like, I actually want to learn how to produce music and try my hand at seriously making something. And I just like threw stuff up on SoundCloud and people started listening to it, like a lot more people than I expected. And people started like booking me for shows and things. I was like, I guess something's happening here. And I kind of went with it. So yeah, that was like 6-7 years ago, like what's it, 2021 now, and the 2014 2015 when I started the official like Moistbreezy music project. And I've definitely like tried a whole bunch of stuff in the time that I've been making music. It's kind of been like as I've been learning, I've been putting stuff out. And rather than some people, they have a plan and then they are like, oh, this is going to be my name and it's going to sound like this. And for me, it was all like a work in progress. Everything just was happening at once. I was learning. And then, but I feel like Breezy is my real body of work that like now I know what I want to do. Now I kind of know what I'm doing. So I guess that's kind of how that all started.
It's such a great journey. And you were talking about like trying so many different things. I think that's one of the reasons I like Breezy so much is you can hear so many different styles and experimentations that work together so well and create almost this like it doesn't just act as an album, it acts as almost like this world that traps a feeling and traps like a journey. And that's just one of the reasons I love it so much. It really does transport you into your journey and your vision.
That means so much to hear because that was the whole idea behind this project, like the Breezy project. As I love world building in general. I love artists who are very like world building artists. Like you listen to their music and you know who they are, whether it's like a character or they take you to a place. And for this, I was like, I really want to create a place with this project where this place exists regardless of what other context there is, because I've been in a bunch of different music scenes and the world has been crazy during the time I've been making music too. It's like one day you think everything's great and the next it's like everything's horrible, everything's getting like destroyed, you're like there's no hope in the world. And it's just been this like cycle of trying to work through that. I was like, I think I need my music to be something that is hopeful, and I can go there, it's an escape, it's like a very like lush place where I feel safe. And even for me, it's like I will listen to Breezy sometimes when I'm stressed out and it'll calm me down. Like this is exactly what I wanted with this project. So
100% comes across. Like when I first like listened to it, I was like, this is really like a soundscape. Like it, like you really go into this world, and especially with the visuals as well. Like that's the one thing I wanted to ask you is like, where do you come up with all these visuals yourself, right? Is that correct? You like produce everything. Like it very much is like this Avatar-esque like magical world, and I am just fascinated by it because I think that's amazing for you to create that all by yourself. Like where'd that vision come from? Like with that kind of magical sense of visuals.
Well, Avatar was definitely one of my inspirations. When I was working on my track Oasis, I was just imagining it in Pandora, or like a place like Pandora. I do a lot of mood boarding to help me work on like building the world. It's like translating visuals to sound, and then at the end it's like, oh, now I can work on making my own visuals based off of that. And I've been making all these visuals and videos and stuff myself because I have a background in film and art. I've been doing that stuff kind of longer than I've been doing music, so like bringing them together has been really exciting. But yeah, and then there's this image that was an artistic rendering of Peter Pan, like the mermaid lagoon, because a very specific painting that I feel like that is really the biggest visual inspiration for the world, I imagine. And then there's other stuff too. Actually, it's funny, I'm like realizing how much animated films have inspired me for the visuals. Like the Contact video, I definitely leaned into like the Thumbelina vibe, and Oasis, like Fern Gully. I was really into all these animated videos when I was little, and I feel like the things that I consumed when I was little kind of come through subconsciously, like without me like deciding, oh, I want to go back to the things I consumed when I was little. It's like, oh yeah, like the Eurodance music I listened to, the animated movies I watched, it's all kind of comes through in Breezy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love it. It's like you just fully become this one woman show of like production, singing, visuals. It's amazing. And I think something I love as well with Breezy, it's like you create this world and it's not just one thing. There's each song almost seems to build its old world, its own little scene. Like one of my favorites is Shipwreck. The visual story it tells, and like the emotion it brings through this really fun sound that resonates with the whole album. I just love it. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Shipwreck I think the hardest song for me to write and produce on the album. I think like I spent the longest on it trying to get it to work. And it's interesting how a lot of people have told me that Shipwreck's been their favorite, because I was the one I was afraid people might not like. But I do really like the writing on that. I was really proud of the writing on that one specifically. But yeah, it's fulfilling to hear that like the track that you really chipped at to get right resonates with people.
It certainly does. I definitely feel like there's been so many artists that have like come out, you know, during this pandemic or like started writing during this pandemic. I know you said you've been doing this for years now, but what was your process like in this kind of like lockdown of last year? Like, was Breezy already in the works prior to that, or was that kind of like a project that you're like, oh, I'm stuck in the house, I guess I'm just gonna write an album? Like, what was that like for you?
I was like in the middle of Breezy when the pandemic happened. I've been trying to work on a mixtape project for 3 years before I finished it. I would think I got the original idea for this in 2017, beginning of 2017, where I was like, oh, I want to make something that's like a paradise vibe. And then I kind of switched what I wanted to do, and I made a whole other mixtape and a half of a totally different sound. And I was like, wait, I don't like this. I need to go back to my original idea. I made about half the songs before the pandemic, and then I like quickly made the rest of them once lockdown happened. Not having distractions, being stuck in the house really helped me focus on finishing it up. Like Contact, I wrote in the pandemic, and I feel like it's like that feeling of, oh, I can't go out and see people, and I'm missing going to the club and dancing, really inspired that song in particular. But that's like the only song that I feel like was influenced by the pandemic, like thematically, because everything else was about creating this paradise world. And also I was like, I want this to be about love. Like this is like this, that's what this project's about.
I think if anything, the pandemic was the perfect time for an album like Breezy to give everyone this sense of escape, to give everyone their own dance floor in a time where there wasn't any. It was exactly what we needed, and God, I loved it when it came out. I was like, I need this album right now. It completed my 2020.
It means so much when people say like, oh, like this helped me got through this time and all of that, because that's exactly what I intended for this project to be. I was like, I feel like I'm going to need this project. Maybe someone else is going to need this project. And it's kind of crazy how it worked that way, that the pandemic happened and this came out, and that this could be a bit of light and escapism from all of this.
Well, definitely worked. Saying about people that have reached out about this album, how has it been as like an upcoming artist putting out this project and then having like people react to it? How's that been to see like kind of fans kind of come together and be like, holy shit, we stand Moistbreezy?
It's been wild, because I feel like when it first came out, like all of a sudden, like all these people were like, I posted the album art and I was like, I feel like half the people retweeting this have never heard of me before. Like they're just following me now, but they're excited based on the album art alone. And a lot of people reached out to me about the project, and even artists that I like really like as well. And that was just, it was a great experience to see that it was resonating with people, because I've been doing this for a while. I do this independently. There have been moments where I've had tracks that get a lot of attention, and then there's tracks I put out and like crickets. It feels like. So, and when that happens, you're like, oh, will I ever be able to reach people again? So it's affirming that you spend a lot of time on something that means a lot to you and it resonates with people. And yes, and people were like, oh, I want it on CD or vinyl. And I wasn't even planning to do that with this project. And like every once in a while I stop and think, wow, I really made a vinyl of, like, I made an album, I made it into a vinyl. I accomplished that. It means a lot to me to like have a physical copy and be like, wow, I never thought I would do that, or at least at this point. But yeah, that and making 2 music videos is like things I wanted to do for a long time that seemed kind of out of reach. And I just like, oh, I'm doing it.
I think as well, with it being such a diverse mixtape, it's found its way into a really welcoming, snug part of the internet, I've found. This almost like Europop, noughties, hyperpop world, which I think fits perfectly in the visuals. This just really fun sound. I think you've really almost made a name for yourself in this really welcoming part of the internet. And I think that was the best direction for this record, because I think a lot of those people in the hyperpop world that didn't have their usual nightlife, it did give them this new nightlife that everyone was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we don't have our usual outlets, but I guess for me it's like hyperpop. I feel like I've been in that scene, or the precursor to that scene before, even though I feel like I kind of stepped back from it for a while, but my roots were definitely like when I started making music, I found a bunch of other people who loved PC music and Sophie and like Nightcore and all of that. And we were all like making music. And some people weren't even making music. We were just into that music and would go out to like meet up. We were in different cities and we'd meet up in a city to go to a show together. The internet has been a big part of this scene, I feel, at least like from my perspective. It's like back when I first started making music, I was just putting stuff up on SoundCloud, and the community I feel like I had was all through like Twitter and SoundCloud. And then we like have video chats and things. And then we'd come together like at South by Southwest, or there'd be a show in New York and people would fly out and everyone would meet each other. So it's interesting that like, you know, this pandemic, I feel like has brought me at least back to that. I think some people have still always been participating online and with online shows and things, but and yeah, I think also hyperpop has been really exploding in the pandemic because it lends itself so well to internet culture and connecting through the internet.
Yeah, I've noticed it a lot that like hyperpop really went from 0 to 100 so fast. But it was great to see so many people celebrating the likes of Sophie. Like it was just really amazing to see, and I think it's opened doors for a lot of upcoming hyperpop artists. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what this world is going to look like in a year or so. Now people have started working on mixtapes because of this huge booming hyperpop.
Yeah, it's really crazy to see because back in the day, we were like listening to PC music and Nightcore, and I was like, we need like a genre to come from this, because at the time I feel like, oh, it's like PC music was PC music, and people doing stuff that kind of felt in that world were not really, I don't know. I felt like some people didn't really want to accept people who were in that same sound but weren't on the label, or it's like pitched up vocals was a very like Nightcore specific thing. It's like now it's like that's a huge part of how people make hyperpop tracks. It's like they'll pitch up their own vocals, or you know, I'll do a feature on a song and someone will like pitch up the vocals that I did for them, and all this stuff where it's like, oh, I feel like I saw what led up to what people are doing now. And it's cool to see how that's become a bigger genre, and there's a huge culture and community around it that's more mainstream and not just like a niche corner of the internet.
And now this has started to build. What is it like now clubs are starting to return and there's this huge market that are wanting to go to the clubs and hear this music? Has that changed for you?
Well, I did technically play my first like IRL thing the other day, but it wasn't really like a club setting. It was still a stream, but I like went and I did a DJ set at the Lot Radio in Times Square. So it was like going and being in an in-person environment, kind of. It was a small booth, but it seemed like, oh, this is like starting to transition back. I'm hoping I can start playing clubs again, but I think we're still in this weird phase of who's going to start doing stuff, like what's allowed. I'm sure like in the next couple of months, things will start really feel like they're going back to like clubs are coming back and shows and all of that. But yes, I'm definitely at a point where I'm ready to connect with people in real life at this point. I really miss the energy of live shows, seeing people in person.
For sure. We're all feeling that. Us as music fans, we want to be in the audience just as bad as you artists want to be up on stage. It's definitely something I crave every day, and I'm excited for it to slowly come back to normal. But I think it's amazing. Like this whole podcast is about obviously like online culture with musicians and stuff. And like you were talking about how this community has kind of been fostered online and now is going to be like in person. Like, do you think the pandemic like kind of had a positive impact on like your career personally, or like just that community in general, kind of forcing people to like, okay, if we want to interact and we want to share this music, we have to do it this way because we don't have any other way of going about, you know, enjoying this together, you know?
I think for me, in some ways, the pandemic was really helpful because it forced me to like sit at home and finish my project. I had these shows planned that I was going to do like in like March, April. Actually, it was April of the beginning of the pandemic. So I would have been like traveling and distracted and may not have even made contact had the pandemic not happened, which is, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, the pandemic wasn't a great thing, but you know, the silver lining was I was able to finish that project. And also I feel like it really like allowed me to feel okay with making a music video by myself. Like I think like I wondered in the back of my head, is it possible for me to even make a music video all by myself? And I was like, I probably shouldn't even, like I should probably work with people, but being in the pandemic, I was like, well, I have to now. Like that's the only way I can do a music video. And I was able to do that. So in a way it allowed me to try stuff that was kind of in the back of my mind, or like try stuff in a certain way that I think opened a avenue for me to really express myself like visually. Like if I hadn't done it by myself, I don't know, like it would have taken a different direction probably if I was working with other people and doing a more traditional way of making a music video. But I think that really helped with my artistic development. It's like, oh, I'm forced under these conditions to bring this vision to life. It's like, how am I gonna make an Oasis? That's like, even like after I released the project, like, I don't know how I'm going to make a music video for Oasis, but I really want to. But yeah, it's like being stuck inside and like kind of being forced to have to figure things out under these restrictions. I'm like, oh, okay, this is how I can do it. I guess sometimes you might doubt yourself, like, oh, like I should be getting like a fancy camera and like this and that to make a music video. And it's like, no, it's okay. You don't have to have all of that, and look at what you can make with when you're given these restrictions. Like restrictions can really help with creativity, I think. So
for sure. Like, I mean, looking at the Oasis music video, it's beautiful. Like I still can't fathom that you did that all by yourself. Like I would have thought you would have had a full team to like literally make it look the way it did. So props to you, girl. That is amazing. But like, what was that process like creating that music video? I mean, you obviously said you have a background in like film and stuff, but was that like a green screen in your bedroom? Like, how did you manage to make it look as spectacular as it came out?
Yeah, well, I've been up at my parents' house this whole time. I was here before the pandemic. I've been living in New York and I came up here, and it's been easier for me to work with having more space and less distractions up here. And so my brother's old bedroom, like my brother was in his own place, I've turned into my little green screen studio. So yeah, it's like I shoot the videos I've done on a green screen. And with Oasis, I created the backdrops in Cinema 4D, like they're 3D, and then there's some elements I brought it into After Effects and added some stuff there as well and composited everything. But yeah, so I have a strong background with visual art, design and film, all of this. So bringing that all together to make my own music video for Oasis. But yeah, it was also, Oasis took a bit of time for me to figure out, because I was like, I know I want it to be an Oasis. I don't really know what else I want going on. So I kind of shot it like 3-4 times to figure out, like, I just be like, oh, I'm just going to set up the camera and shoot something and then see what it looks like and change it from there. It's kind of hard when you're doing it by yourself. You can't really see what's going on while you're doing it, because you're like, oh, I have to focus on my performance, but then I can't watch my performance as a director and like figure out like lighting and this and that. So it's kind of more of a longer process doing it by myself. But I'm like, somehow I made something out of it. So yeah.
Certainly did. It was beautiful. And even with like the Y2K kind of vibes, like we were talking, me and Ethan, like that's kind of like the new theme of our podcast this year is like the whole Y2K. And when we were like looking at pictures and stuff, I was like, she is like the epitome of like this Y2K, like nostalgic kind of vibe that you give off as an artist. And I just absolutely love it. And I think you have a amazing creative vision for everything with the music and the design. And I bow down to you as a woman show, because I definitely could not do that if I was an artist. There's no way.
It's tough being a one-woman show. I'm definitely at the point where I'm like, I need to start building my team because if I'm doing like 10 jobs, it gets tough. Also, I feel like, collaboration can lead to really interesting results when you're working with the right people. But yeah, in the Y2K things, I'm super inspired by Y2K, like the late 90s and early 2000s, and that like very like futuristic Y2K aesthetic as well. And just like the feeling of that era was like there was this moment that was so hopeful. I feel like the turn of the century. Like I think like Jennifer Lopez, Waiting for Tonight. I feel like that's like the song I associate with like the year 2000. Like this, definitely trying to tap into that energy with visuals and the music. It's having a more hopeful vision of the future.
Yeah, when you listen back, you can definitely hear those 90s and 90s sounds. That era was known for having just every song was fun. And that's what I really like that you managed to encapsulate. You managed to get the fun, which I think the world's starved of right now. We just need fun, and I'm glad that you are bringing us fun.
Yeah, I think that's like, I was like, there's so much dystopic stuff out there, like sad songs and movies that are like, oh, this is a warning of where we're headed. And it's like, I can't tell a difference between these fictional dystopic films and reality anymore. At a point, I feel like we're like our world is starting to mirror the dystopic art that was meant to be a warning. Like we really need stuff that is hopeful and fun. For me, I feel like it's easier to tackle the challenges of life when you're charged up. Like I really get charged up by uplifting music and even like movies like romantic comedies. Like I love watching a romantic comedy because afterwards I just feel good and hopeful about life. Like it just like uplifts me. Like and being like having art that puts you in that mindset, I think is important to have because it gives you strength to deal with the real challenges of the real world. And hopefully we can make the world a more fun place overall.
For sure. And I think your message is definitely getting across because I think Breezy is so fun. And I'm excited for the world to see you on stage and those clubs having some fun in the next couple months because I think that's what the world needs. And it's definitely going to happen for you. I'm excited. But what is next for Moistbreezy? Like you mentioned kind of collabs. Would you like to collab with other artists coming up? Like what are the next steps for you?
Well, I feel like I have a couple things in the Breezy era. Just like maybe I will have a Breezy live show. I don't know if I'll have multiple. Like if that comes to be, I would love to do a Breezy tour. But I am very much itching towards starting my next project. I've had ideas in my mind for a while, and in terms of it's like collaboration, I do have that in my mind. Part of me is like, at least on the visual side, I'm thinking maybe I want to collaborate more. On the music side, this definitely something that's in my mind, but I'm also I have a lot of back and forth with, because making music is such a like spiritual process for me, and it's like a personal process that I'm not sure how I would want to involve collaborations with it, but I'm sure I will collaborate in some shape or form. But I definitely want to get started on my next project, and I have some ideas in mind. But yeah, in the meantime, there may be a couple other things that come and help finish out this era. But yeah, I'm definitely at that point where it's like next era is gonna start incubating. So
I'm excited. You know, I read online that you've really been looking into honoring this like Persian side of yourself and really creating more of this lush Persian inspired music. We'll be getting that because to me that just sounds so Moistbreezy and I would really love it.
that is something where like it's been in my mind is like incorporating Persian influences in my music. I haven't quite found, I kind of like in a way that like there is some like drums and Oasis that pull from it, but I haven't really found a way to work it into my music yet. But it's something that's definitely on my mind. And I'm always like, when I work on music, I'm always trying different things, and eventually something clicks. So maybe there will be more like overtly Persian sounding influences in the future. But yeah, that's one of the things that's been on my mind of wanting to do and try and do more of. I have so many ideas of things I want to try, but I definitely want to keep it fun. Yeah, maybe the next project will be more dancey is what I'm thinking, but I don't want to commit to anything before I've actually made the music.
Honestly, dancey sounds amazing, but whatever you do, I'm 100% sure that it is going to be fun and we are going to love it.
I'm ready to dance. I'm 100% ready to dance. I dance with Breezy. I'm going to dance with whatever you come up with next. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think we need a dance. Like that's what we're ready to hit the clubs and dance again. So
100%.
We really, really are. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today. We really, really appreciate it. Where can people find you online and buy your vinyl and find your music?
Well, I'm Moistbreezy, one word, and yeah, my social handles are all Moistbreezy. Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, wherever, YouTube. Actually, I think I recently was able to get my own YouTube handle where it's like youtube.com/moistbreezy. So you have to have like a certain amount of followers or something. Then I forgot about it. I was like, wait, now I passed the threshold. But yeah, I also have my website, which is moistbreezy.com. And that's where you can buy vinyl, t-shirts, CD, have face masks. And all the merch comes with a moist towelette.
I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah, Moistbreezy on the internet. Pretty Google SEO optimized. So
amazing. Well, thank you again for coming and chatting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Everybody has to go stream Breezy right now. If you want to dance, get your summer bops, get ready. It's time to get practice before the clubs open up. You got to put on Breezy and bop a little bit.
Oh yeah. Put on Contact. That's really the thinking about going back to the clubs vibe.
Yes. Perfect. Well, thank you again to all of our listeners for once again tuning in to the Internet Religion Podcast. We appreciate everybody that tunes in every week. To wrap it up, as we always say, wear a mask. The pandemic is not over yet, and the future is bright. We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.